We are on. Thank you. Mayday.
Mayday.
And we have from Vietnam, Hanoi, Vietnam, and Des Moines, Iowa, we have Mayday stretching around the world.
Well, welcome back to the show. Last time we were here, if you watched this show, and I hope that you did last time too, I lost my voice, so I was pretty much mute last time. But so to make
It's not going to happen this time.
To make up for the lack of the noise last time, I'm going to laugh all the way.
Wow! Even if we're not funny.
Even if we're not funny, yes.
Yes.
When the sort of the wall between the death and the livings are the closest. And then Matt start talking about fairies and showmen, and I have no ideas what he's talking about. So I think I would like to start the show.
Very common occurrence.
The secret of
Fairies
their success.
with wings, right?
Having trouble getting along.
Communication.
We have all
Each other's voices.
So what's a fairy, Mike?
yes.
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah, what's a fairy?
There's a wonderful line from Shakespeare. That's the best I can do, is to go to big time stuff. As he's the last play of his life is The Tempest, and he has the hero who's a magician. His name is Prospero. Ye elves of hills, brooks, and standing groves, and ye demi-puppets that by moonshine do the green, sour winglets make. And he just invokes these elves and spirits and says, thank you for all your help in creating the world I've created. Said, and bury my book fathoms under the ground. That was his way of saying goodbye.
So this is the musician way of saying goodbye.
The magician's,
not Shakespeare's
well,
way.
well, it could have been Shakespeare. It would, but might have been putting his feelings into the mouth of the magician.
Oh.
So he was saying goodbye. You have hypnotized Matt.
Close your eyes. Smile, big smile.
Wow. We have been continually learning about relationships as we have this couple on again and again. So, but Matt, you have to tell me what moves you to ask this question, because I imagine
Either?
Yes.
I went to a Unitarian Mass today, and they talked about Mayday and fairies and how we don't listen to fairies anymore, but fairies exist, and that we should be celebrating them today. And I had never thought about fairies before in my life.
When I was a young boy, I read all the fairy books. Fairy tales.
Oh.
And one of my favorite songs, fairy tales can come true. They can happen to you.
Yes.
If you're young at heart.
So is that, do you think that's why we don't see fairies in cities? Nobody's young at heart. Everybody's old and jaded.
Oh my! I don't want. And other things now, but it certainly was in the past. One of the great psychics of all time, Eileen Garrett. She was so good that someone would come with an envelope, and they would just give an envelope to Eileen Garrett, and she'd say, "Oh, I can feel that it's your little girl's hair is in this envelope, and she's just had an accident." Thank you, Indian chief. And so she'd go into this trance and hear this Indian chief, and she was good enough, a psychic, the great ones do this, say, I don't know if there's really an Indian chief. It's just something coming out of my psyche, and it seems to be helpful at times.
Interesting. So that means if you want to see fairies, you have to be young at heart?
She was told by the fairies that her aunt had just died. I don't know why they would tell her that. And she told her mother, and it turned out her aunt had just died.
Huh.
And she told her mother her fairies had told her, and her mother said, we don't believe in stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, do
Yeah,
fairies
you
even
don't believe-
exist? I mean, do they even exist, or just sort of imaginary figures?
Story, which will bring us to Buddhism.
Yeah.
Where this, you remember this little girl at 6, this Cambodian in my class told me the story. This little girl at 6 told her parents in Cambodia that I had drowned in a previous life, and my parents live in a village near here. And they said, we don't believe in that stuff anymore.
We don't
And she-
believe that stuff anymore.
And she kept bugging them, and they little girl, and I want to come back and live with you. And her present parents said, put her in a basket and swung her around and around and around to get her to forget. And she said, but I'll never forget. And then one of the students in the class, she was in her young 20s, I think at the time, said, do you have any experiences like that now? And she said, no. When I lived in Asia, there was the life force in the soles of my feet, and feel the winds in the sky, and therefore I could, and it was quiet enough that I could get in touch with experiences like this. But since I've been in America in a room like this one, right, got a floor and a ceiling, and there's noise around, I don't have experiences like that.
What does it mean?
Shaman.
Shaman.
You've got them in Vietnam, a lot of them. People who can communicate with
The death?
the dead and just sort of the spirit world.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, we have some, but we're not sure if we can trust them or not. I think some of us do trust them.
Did you ever meet one?
No.
Oh.
Have you ever met a shaman?
The shaman's name was Melodana, something like that. But I discovered that everything he said seemed to have been different from what he said the last time he met me. So I don't really know. I don't really know. I don't see why. I mean, there's another famous story of Michael Harner, who brought shamanism and has ayahuasca, which is a drug that'll give you, bring you into another reality. And he's with a shaman. And the shaman is supervising him as he has this drug. I had another friend of mine who literally did this also, went to South America and had an experience like Michael Harner. And Michael Harner goes into this trance and he hears from a spirit. And finally you have come to have a real experience of me. I am now here to guide you. And he gets up from his trance and is ecstatic. And he tells his shaman, I just had this amazing experience where I met God. And the shaman says, oh, all the spirits say they're God. You can't trust them.
Like at one point people believed, and then they're like, this isn't like the way we do it in the modern. I mean, what would make somebody stop believing in fairies?
Well, people stop believing in God now when they go to college.
It's true.
Yes. What have we? Some people don't even believe in love anymore. till they see you two on television. Shattering beliefs. I mean, Nelson Mandela, in prison for 27 years, said he got this from Marion Williamson, who teaches and is an advocate of A Course in Miracles. And he said, we're most afraid of how powerful we are. How amazing. So there's a lot of stuff that people don't believe, how amazing we are.
Do you think that's the reason why someone would stop believing in fairies?
It wasn't like we didn't believe in him. It was like if someone would have asked me, do you believe in the horse and buggy? It was like, what are you talking about? I mean, horse and buggy was good for when there wasn't automobiles. So there was no discussion, no not belief in it either, which is, I think, pretty much the way people feel about fairies and elves also, that there's...
Really exist. I think
the shamans are, maybe they're not in touch with, but the shamans really are around the world.
Yes, but whether they really in touch with the death or not.
Yes, or
because
spirits,
I think that we human beings, we all sort of try to look for some meaning beyond ourselves.
Yes.
And look for some sort of spirituality.
Yes.
And maybe there's a market for that in people.
Year, Nathan Hart is in Harvard Business School.
I'm a very spiritual person, but just for the sake of argument,
yes, that's
I would like to counter-argue what Matt just said. Because on the other hand, I think that, I'm spiritual, but on the other hand, maybe I'm just like everybody else, that we human beings are just so void and empty, and we always want to seek something other than us. There's a demand that will be supplied. We'll try to make up with fairies, or may have claimed the ability to communicate.
Maybe that's the reason why people say we don't believe in that stuff anymore.
Exactly.
But there could be a market. These people are going to be so in debt after going to MIT and Harvard. They're looking for a market.
Oh, you don't
and
have
there's nothing. There's nothing as lucrative in hard times.
If you want to meet fairies, give us a call.
Yes, give us a call. Yes, write the station and put Ha and Matt on. And it could be we need a little... Tinkerbell helped Peter Pan.
Yeah, true.
Yes. What, any other famous fairies in history? I don't know.
I don't know either, but...
Midsummer Night Dream.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes, that was... I wonder what we could experience if, I don't know it all, Matt, so we could ask, what are some of the experiences you've had that you didn't know was there, and then all of a sudden you've had them? Whether it's love, or power, or whatever experience. You have.
It went from the rational mind to the emotional mind.
That's an interesting way of putting it.
Where you first entertain the notion, you ask the question, does God exist or not exist?
Yes.
Or do fairies exist or not exist? Or does something is or not is? And then you conceptually understand, well, maybe God does exist. But then there's that moment where you feel felt it, when you recognized it, when you had your coming of age or your coming of being. What was that like for you?
I'll answer it if Ha promises to tell us what she means when she says she's spiritual.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so when I was in my young 20s, I was very lonely. As Ha was saying, right, we have a void and we're empty and lonely. It's
Where were you?
No. At fact, the famous chancellor said that whenever he had an urge to exercise, he lay down until it passed. He really wanted to be in the mind. And so I was very lonely and started having conversations with the only one I could find to talk with, myself. And I really didn't, and I was very confused as to what to do. Should I ask Amy Sue out or not? And then after I took her out, she invited me up to her place, and we're sitting on the couch, and I was so scared in my young 20s, and I hear a voice that says, "Hold her hand, punk." And so I reach out, and I do, because I had, I listened to and then I went home, and I had a friend of mine who was studying to be a priest. Could be, instead of being a lonely boy talking to yourself, you could be, that inner voice could be the voice of God. And I had a choice. I could be a lonely boy talking to myself, or I could have my own special cell phone relationship to God, which is Koran. So that's how I began to believe that, oh my. Yes, I think I've said that in the show. When I went to Israel to find out about this, close experience, and I was sleeping on rooftops, and the voice said, "Jump off the roof." I said, "We need to talk this over." And then I discovered that the word Israel, I remembered that. My studies came in handy. I said, the word Israel means to wrestle with God and sometimes win. As just a thought, but I would have really, really wrestled, found people to wrestle with. Then I would have been. I eventually did, so I wasn't sleeping alone on the rooftop.
So that's interesting because Jesus also had this imagination or this temptation to throw himself off the cliff.
Yes.
Yeah, because if Jesus is out in the desert and he's having that sounds like it's from within ourselves.
Yes.
So if a fairy comes up and talks to you, how do you know it's really a fairy talking to you when it could just be something you're just hearing in the wind and interpreting?
Yes, that's a hard question for many people, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything out there?
Yeah. So I mean, if a fairy came up and talked to me. We're going to the beach forever, and we're not looking back.
You see now,
Yeah.
We're not paying off the debt.
Interesting Rorschach, though. That's what he hears. This is much more revealing than we might want to admit. What else is this?
Unconscious desire.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
But if the voice, where that voice is coming from, and how true that voice is, and wouldn't that be an easy way of saying we don't believe in that stuff anymore? Or that'd be a great way of saying why we need religion, or why we need to get rid of these old beliefs and bring in these new beliefs?
Do you know what? I actually, the way I think about God, or the way you guys spoke to God, I think that you actually spoke to your inner self. More. That means you probably don't believe in yourself anymore.
Wow, that's very beautiful. But now, Hi, you promised you're going to now tell us. You said you're a spiritual person. You're going to tell.
Which is taking the exact opposite position, which is meaning believing myself more and more, believing in the beauty of life more and more. And the way I look at life is we have material. The things you can't measure. It's like this, the richness of this conversation, for example, the laughter that I share with the people on the street,
Yes.
the dance that I had fantastic on the floor at Venue the other day.
Where?
Venue is a kind of hip place, but
Wow.
or at the MFA for that matter. But That's what I define spiritual. Believe in yourself, believe in life, believe in the fact that you can have a happy life. You don't need to, you can create a happy life for yourself.
And you have.
I have.
Yes.
So again, I mean, you want to figure out how to do it, call the number. promise we'll charge you more than
Yes.
more than the tax consultant charge you. So
Book and DVD forthcoming.
yeah.
Koran.blip.tv. It's called Hanoi and Des Moines, a love story. And there's also another one up there called We Are Always Forgiven. This is a line I will always remember from Matt, and when I don't feel forgiven, I remember it.
So I saw the Dalai Lama this week.
Yes, tell us.
And he was talking about how in the modern world we're divorced from ethics. Institution that promulgates ethics for them. And so he talked about the three faiths, those that believe in deity, such as us, those without deity, and then the third...
What do you mean without deity?
The ones that don't believe, there's the Judaic, Christian, Muslim religions of deity, the Buddhist...
But what he means,
I don't really.
well, you love Jesus.
But I do believe there's a supernatural power out there.
Oh, there is. Could
I mean,
we
the
address
force of the universe. I mean, like where we come from. I mean, we must come from something. It's just, or maybe it's a.
It's a fairy.
I don't think so. I believe in spirits. Life, the energy of life.
Yes, yes.
That's what I see.
Yes. So,
the energy. That's
but
what
you said there's also something more, something supernatural for you?
Yeah, the super energy, the supernatural.
Which is, could you explain it a little bit more for people like Matt and I who need all the help we can get?
Define supernaturals?
Yes.
The wind is a supernatural. I mean, it's a natural phenomenon. Even beyond our capacity of understanding it. That is why I call it supernatural. It's beyond our understanding.
That's the best, Matt. I have to admit,
that's pretty good.
It's the best definition of supernatural we've ever heard.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
I can write a book. I know.
That's very beautiful. The supernatural really is very close to Spinoza. Spinoza said that God is nature naturing itself.
Yes.
That's what you call Yahweh, though, right?
Well, Yahweh couldn't. One possible meaning of Yahweh is the combination of past, present, and future squished together in the Hebrew words to be present or a presence.
But like Yahweh, I always saw Yahweh as it's so amazing that one, you can't say it because it's sacred, but two, you can't. That encompasses the true magnificence
Of what Howard was talking about.
Oh yeah, of it.
Yes. Now we only have.
We are products of that supernatural as well. So there's God in you, in me, and in everybody.
I even think we are that we were
are
there.
part of God. Yeah.
We were there because we're made out of the Big Bang.
Yes.
Or if Howard have caused.
Cells in our bodies have been around since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
So there's really no difference between us and a tree or a blade of grass, other than the composure of those cells.
Yes.
But then also the notion of what we believe. So when you say that we don't believe in that stuff anymore, we don't believe in that we're connected to that anymore. We believe that we're separate.
Like even saints or gods or great spirits, they're kind of little things, little people. Almost like, that's why children like them, fairy tales.
Yeah.
And maybe there's, from what Ha is saying, she's talking about that beauty and that more than natural that's in the grass and in the sun and in the trees and in the wind. And it could life in the wind. Oh, it must be I think it's a fairy. So that's a possibility.
Yeah.
That people that experienced it then, and nowadays we might just call it just the awesome, words won't do any good, right? The
Yeah.
awesomeness of the, Whitman did it better. He just called it,
Universe in a blade of grass.
Yes, he just said, well, I'm going to do this afternoon. And I want you to. Okay, we have a minute to go, both of you. Any last words to our
So we
loving
haven't really
audience?
talked about Buddhism that much, but I think it's a sort of good segue for us to talk about spirituality, Buddhism, because Buddhism in a way of living life spirituality, in a
yeah.
spiritual way.
Well, when you were talking
the
about
matter of the heart.
I'm going to steal your time.
Yeah.
You'll discover a universe in that emptiness. You'll discover what you're talking about. Way more than your personality. You'll discover the whole, one writer, Joseph Campbell, said, in the place we're most alone, we'll find the world.
Yes, because we are it.
Wow. On that happy note, thank you for being
challenging. Life becomes more complicated. Can I afford to stay at home? How will I pay for my medications? What are my health insurance options? What are my choices? These are some of the questions that Payne Senior Services can help you answer.
Payne Senior Services can help you find